It's 9:03 a.m., and you can already tell it's going to be one of those mornings. So you turn on the NPR One app.
It's NPR One.
And hear a stream of hand-picked stories. You keep on listening because you hear another story you love. Then another. And another. Which means your favorite morning show lasts as long as you want it to.
What's up, guys? It's Benny. Some wonderful news to start your week. President Trump has defunded NPR and PBS. This is, of course, ending government-funded propaganda media. I thought we should all be against that, right? Oh, but it's okay when we do it. It's okay when we do it. This is something that should have never happened. We should have never had government, taxpayer-funded propaganda press in this country. I don't know how this is possibly fair to independent media, even to corporate media. Does the government fund Fox News? Well, I mean, not directly. The point is that it's unfair to anybody else in the journalism space to have specific outlets get hundreds of millions of dollars from the taxpayers, and we don't get any say in it. Donald Trump is right, and he has ended it right now with his executive order. I also find it particularly fascinating from the left when it comes to this kind of stuff, because if it was a news site in a country they didn't like Russia or Iran or in China or in North Korea, they'd say, oh, it's totally government propaganda. That's evil because you don't like the regime. But suddenly when it's the federal government, it's okay. No, it's not okay. Ending taxpayer subsidization of biased media. By the authorization vested in me as the Constitution of the United States of America, I hereby order National Public Radio and Public Broadcasting Service, PBS, NPR, and PBS, receive taxpayer funds through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Unlike 1967, when the CPB was established, today the media landscape is filled with abundant, diverse, and innovative news opinions. Government funding of the news media in an environment is not only outdated and unnecessary, but corrosive to the appearance of journalistic independence. This is completely true. At the very least, Americans have the right to expect that their tax dollars fund public broadcasting at all. They fund only fair, accurate, unbiased, nonpartisan news coverage. No media outlet has the constitutional right to taxpayer subsidies. The government is entitled to determine which categories of activities to subsidize. The CBP's governing statute reflects principal impartiality. CBP may not contribute to otherwise support any political party. The CPB fails to abide by these principles to the extent that it subsidizes NPR and PBS. Which viewpoints NPR and PBS promote does not matter. What does matter is that they neither entirely represent fair, accurate, nor unbiased portrayal of current events and taxpayers' citizens. I therefore instruct the Corporation for Public Broadcasting Board of Directors and all executive departments and agencies to cease federal funding for NPR. And then it goes into all of the times when NPR and PBS have been biased. It goes into all of the instructions and constitutionality of all of this, and the severability, general provisions, and so on. So this is the real deal. Signed, Donald Trump at the White House. I got to tell you, they don't really have a leg to stand on, right? Like when it comes to this. Trump signs order to axe federal funding amendment. What took so long? You know what I mean? Right? On these kind of things. The order calls for the two biggest public broadcasters in the U.S. Bias and directs the Corporation for Public Broadcasting to cease funding. Comes amid a broader push to target traditional media companies that Republicans see as biased against them. I don't see any broader push for that. This is government funding. You're welcome to try and run your traditional media, but places like MSNBC are going out of business along with CNN. The situation is already tense, which allocates about $500 million in federal funding to NPR and PBS. Isn't that amazing? We always hear that it's like the federal government doesn't give us the majority of our funding. It's just a small amount of our funding. $500 million? Are you kidding me? Do you realize that how much that is an obscene amount of money? That's per year, annually? $500 million annually? They filed a lawsuit against Trump and several administration officials on Monday for attempting to fire 3 members of its board. What? I mean, you work for the federal government. You work for the executive. Donald Trump is the chief executive. I don't know how they're going to have a leg to stand on. The NPR has enjoyed bipartisan support from lawmakers responsible for approving their government funds. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, why don't you go ahead and test that today? 2 public broadcasters are mostly funded by non-government sources, but PBS CEO said during an Axios newspaper event in Washington, D.C., that local member stations and PBS and NPR rely heavily on government funding. NPR defended editorial integrity after Marjorie Taylor Greene called CEOs of 2 broadcasters to testify to the DOJ subcommittee, and that was very bad. I'll play you a clip in just a moment from Catherine Mayer, NPR president and CEO. She says that the organization will challenge the executive order using all means available. Well, what means is that exactly? Exactly. You live by the sword, you die by the sword. If you build a company based on government funding, well, then you better not become a left-wing rag for propagandists. America's founders knew an informed public was essential to the functioning of democracy. Oh, where's that? Where's that exactly in the Constitution? Blatantly unlawful. Okay, well, how is this unlawful? She said it threatens our ability to serve the American public in education programming. We are currently exploring all options. Well, you haven't noted, like, can you show me in the Constitution where this is unlawful? CPB is not a federal executive agency subject to the president's authority, she said. Oh, we'll challenge that in the courts. Congress directly authorized and funded the CPB, but the government. I'm sorry, but like while government does funding, this is a federal branch, right? In creating, Congress forbade federal departments, agencies, or officers from exercising control over the broadcasting, she added. It will be challenged in court. Okay, well, I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. I guess Congress could grow some balls and actually defund this too, themselves. PBS, NPR blast blatantly unlawful. This is crazy. $500 million a year. This is just obscene. So, like, I'm going to figure out like exactly how they're going to go about doing this. This is not about balancing the federal budget. NPR says the appropriation for public broadcasting, NPR PBS, represents less than 0.0001% of the federal budget. Who cares? That doesn't matter. The federal budget is like $7 trillion. So that's a lot of money. I'll happily take that percentage of the federal budget. Thank you very much. The president's order is an affront to the First Amendment, the rights of NPR and locally owned stations. Well, again, like, why don't you just do what all the rest of us have to do? Like, go make your own money. Like, what an obscenity. Go make your own money. According to NPR report, NPR receives roughly 1% of its funding directly from the federal government. Okay. So it makes up 8 to 10% of its funding. All right. So you should be able to make up 8 to 10%. Why is this such a crisis? Trump says he's ending federal funding for NPR and PBS. They say he can't, says NPR, with the cope and the seethe. This could be devastating, says NPR and PBS. Nobody even gets their news from NPR and PBS. I don't know a single person that gets news from NPR and PBS. And again, if there are people that get news from NPR and PBS, then they can pay for a subscription just like everybody else. They can they can listen, and you can run an ad. I think this is great. We should have propaganda press in this country. And the end is near for the people who clearly hate this country, like Catherine Mayer of NPR. She's the CEO of NPR. She was asked by Brandon Gill about some past statements. And here's how it went. These are the kind of people that are in charge of your government propaganda news. Exactly the kind of people you'd expect, by the way. Here we go.
It's interesting because a lot of your thinking, as expressed by your public statements, is deeply infused with economic and cultural Marxism. Do you believe that America is addicted to white supremacy?
I believe that I tweeted that, and as I've said earlier, I believe much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade.
It has evolved. Why did you tweet that?
I don't recall the exact context, sir, so I wouldn't be able to say.
Okay. Do you believe that America believes in black plunder and white democracy?
I don't believe that, sir.
You tweeted that in reference to a book you were reading at the time, apparently, The Case for Reparations.
I don't think I've ever read that book, sir.
You tweeted about it. You said you took a day off to fully read The Case for Reparations. You put that on Twitter in January of 2020.
Apologies, I don't recall that I did.
Okay.
I'd no doubt that your tweet there is correct, but I don't recall that.
Okay. Do you believe that white people inherently feel superior to other races?
I do not.
You don't? You tweeted something to that effect. You said, I grew up feeling superior. Ha, how white of me. Why did you tweet that?
I think I was probably reflecting on what it was to grow up in an environment where I had lots of advantages.
It sounds like you're saying that white people feel superior.
I don't believe that anybody feels that way, sir. I was just reflecting on my own experiences.
Do you think that white people should pay reparations?
I've never said that, sir.
Yes, you did. You said it in January of 2020. You tweeted, "Yes, the North. Yes, all of us. Yes, America. Yes, our original collective sin and unpaid debt. Yes, reparations. Yes, on this day."
I don't believe that was a reference to fiscal reparations, sir.
What kind of reparations was it a reference to?
I think it was just a reference to the idea that we all owe much to the people who came before us.
That's a bizarre way to frame what you tweeted. Okay, how much reparations have you personally paid?
Sir, I don't believe that I've ever paid reparations.
Okay, it's just for everybody else.
I'm not asking anyone
Seems
to pay
to be what you're
reparations, sir.
suggesting. Do you believe that looting is morally wrong?
I believe that looting is illegal, and I refer to it as counterproductive. I think it should be prosecuted.
Do you believe it's morally wrong, though?
Of course.
Of course. Then why did you refer to it as counterproductive? It's a very different way to describe it.
It is both morally wrong and counterproductive, as well as being
You
illegal.
tweeted, "It's hard to be mad about protests," in reference to the BLM protests, not prioritizing the private property of a system of oppression. You didn't condemn the looting. You said that it was counterproductive. NPR also promoted a book called In Defense of Looting. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I'm unfamiliar with that book, sir, and I don't believe that was at my
You
time at
tweeted
NPR.
that you read that book, but
I don't believe that I did read that book, sir.
do you think that a few years ago, NPR educated America about, quote, the whole community of genderqueer dinosaur enthusiasts? Do you think that that's an appropriate use of tax dollars?
I was not at NPR at the time, sir.
That's not the question, though. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of our tax dollars?
I think our tax dollars that we use are to be able to provide a wide range of
I'll
perspectives.
take that as a yes. You do believe that that's appropriate. Your health advisor at NPR also stated in an interview that, quote, fear of fatness is more harmful than actual fat. Would you like to explain how fear of fatness is more harmful than actual fat? That's an editorial at NPR.
I am not familiar with the editorial, and I don't believe that was published during my time here.
It's called Diet Culture is Everywhere. Here's how to fight it. Do you think that that's an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars?
I think any reporting on health is an appropriate use of taxpayer dollars, yes.
And you think that editorializing that fat is not unhealthy is appropriate?
I don't know what that article is, sir, and I'm not familiar with it, so I couldn't say.
Fake news. Do you think that basic accommodations like doorways or seat belts represent, quote, latent fat phobia?
I don't have an opinion.
It's also from NPR. Do you think civility is racist?
No, sir.
No. Well, your outlet ran an article entitled, quote, when civility is used as a cudgel against people of color. That was on All Things Considered. Would you like to explain?
I'm not on the editorial side, sir. I'm not familiar with that story.
You talk about how NPR is news. This is editorialization, and I'll read it. For many people of color in the United States, civility isn't so much social lubricant as it is a vehicle for containing them, preventing social mobility, and preserving the status quo. This is garbage. I'll spend all of my time doing everything I can to ensure you guys never get another dollar of taxpayer funding. This is complete garbage. Thank you, Madam Chair.